This is Sebastiano Toffaletti at the European Digital SME Alliance. Welcome to this live event, the launch of our focus groups on smart cities and smart communities. The title of this event is, as you know, Transforming Europe's Communities with Smart Solutions. This is, as you know, the European Digital SME Alliance, the largest association in Europe for SMEs in the digital sector, representing national associations and companies from 28 countries with a membership of more than 45,000 SMEs across the continent. Many of these companies, some of these companies rather, because many will be too many, 45,000. Some of these companies will be with us today, especially those who are providing solutions to smart cities and smart communities. Some of them will be even pitching or telling us their best practices. We have launched an invitation to all our membership and community to be with us today. The event is open to the general public, and we have invited in particular very important organizations. First of all, the European Commission, other European institutions, and relevant organizations representing cities and communities such as Eurocities and OASC. So we, as well as cities themselves, which are here with us today, and also European research projects, by the way, which have an interest in this conversation. So a couple of words to introduce the topic. As we all know, our cities and our communities are in the midst of a digital transformation. Some we know are much advanced, others are a bit behind, but all of them, all of the cities and the communities are keen to go into this journey of digital transformation. So to provide ways, new ways to provide innovative services to their citizens in a way which everyone says they want it to be as inclusive as possible. At the same time, technologies such as artificial intelligence, cloud, blockchain, Wi-Fi, 5G, I don't know, let's say big data, IoT, and so on, you name them, they are increasingly helping cities and communities to address important challenges such as environmental challenges, but also societal or even the democratic participation of their citizens. So we all increasingly understand the importance of these technologies and the revolution which is happening around cities and communities. At the same time, people are increasingly understanding, there is increasingly awareness that this digitalization journey is not just about buying services or buying solutions from an IT provider. It is much more complex than that. And technologies come with huge challenges. Think about things such as privacy, data, security, even vendor lock-in. There are a number of more and more strategic issues and challenges which come with the adoption of technologies nowadays. And, you know, just think about the role of platforms, even in democracy. Think of what has happened with Facebook in the US, which has allegedly influenced the US allegedly, most likely influenced the US elections. So the role of technologies is not just neutral. One cannot just go and buy technology from a provider and think the story is over. Technologies nowadays are a synonym for power. They are tools to exercise power, and the consequences are immense. And fortunately, more and more people, especially our policymakers, are more and more aware of this. And so Europe, and we see this every day in the statements, in the declarations, in the acts of our European leaders, is increasingly taking care of these problems and trying to find a strategy towards these issues. So, in a word, what we like to say is that there is a growing awareness that we should go into a more sustainable model of digitalization. People have been talking a lot about digital sovereignty. This is one way to call it. Okay, and what we see a lot of interest in is in the fact that the technology is not the ownership of a few big tech companies from US and China, but technology is an open ecosystem where many companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, especially those who are at the local level with the cities themselves, they can provide services, they can provide technologies in a perhaps more open and more inclusive way. And many of our IT companies are already doing that. And fortunately, many of the city administrators have understood the importance of working with the local providers, not just to have a more innovative technology or a more inclusive technology, but also to boost the local economy, to get to help companies which are going to hire more people and to attract skill to the city, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of benefits in this ecosystem between cities and SMEs. So we are here today to launch an ambitious initiative where we want to put together for the first time, perhaps, really in the front place, the SMEs, the SME providers of such solutions, together with the representatives of cities and communities, together with the European institutions, and any stakeholder which is interested is going to be invited to this initiative. It's a focus group, and with a long-term action plan. We will start today by presenting a draft manifesto, which hopefully is going to be discussed and agreed by the participants. And we are going to have a long list of initiatives that would like to come out of this focus group. Now, without further ado, let me start perhaps giving the floor to my first speaker today. I'm glad that I will start with the European Commission. I hope Eddie Hartog is already with us. He is head of unit at DG Connect at the European Commission, especially for in the Smart Communities unit. So Eddie, thank you very much for being with us, and looking forward to hear your short address to this audience.
Thank you, Sebastiano, not only for today, but also for all the other work we've already been doing together with you. I think it's wonderful that we have started that initiative. Now, yesterday I was in another workshop, as we have many of those online workshops, which was about the digital decade and living in the .eu, but in general with cities. And it always looks like these things have not much in common, big political tickets, EU policy, structures, that sort of thing, and then what the cities do. And actually we discovered that there's a lot that we do have in common. One is, to make it work, you need all operators on the ground, and whether that is city administrations or local SMEs or citizens, you need them on the ground to implement it. Whether it's the greening, energy transition, mobility, etc., you need them. But most importantly, we actually found that at the heart of our agenda is to do this, what we call the European way. And I'll make a few references to your manifesto as well. And I'm really pleased to see that also the SMEs can put that in their DNA, if I take your manifesto as such. So I think that's an important point of contact that we had yesterday and that I also see today. Now, I can give you a long description of all the stuff that the European Union contributes to in terms of the work that is done in cities. I mean, whether that is the urban agenda, very broad, which also has a digital component, whether that is the Intelligent Cities Challenge, which really focuses also on that proximity economy that you were just talking about, whether that's the new mission on climate neutral cities, or whether that is the smart cities marketplace. There's a lot of tools that we try to make available, but obviously we can't do it for you. But with all those tools, with all the work that we've done in research programs, we still found that there are a number of things that are not addressed, but I will only mention two because they link directly to also what you have in the manifesto. First of all, we have found wonderful solutions, but we do not scale them. We have 20 cities doing one thing and 30 cities doing another thing, but we don't have anything that binds the 85,000 municipalities in the European Union to actually work from that European vision. And that is something that we need to do. The second thing then is that we often find that there is an imbalance in the market. I mean, you mentioned some of the big players, but there is on the demand side, we can't get this properly organized. And in your manifesto, you have this idea of leveraging the local power of also in procurement of a community. Very important aspect. Now, from those problems, obviously we don't linger in the problems. We came to what we think is the solution, not to do more projects. Yes, we will do more projects, but that's not the core of it. But it's really to start a movement in the European Union. And I'm really pleased to say that's not the Commission starting a movement. It's the city starting a movement through a number of their sponsoring organizations, like we have Eurocities later on, but the organization of Ideale Smart Cities, who's also here, the European Network of Living Labs. And we said, okay, we'll join you. We're happy to facilitate you in that work. And that is what this movement of living in .eu, and I know the background is a bit blurred, I'll change it later, but that is what this movement is all about, that in the next 20, 30 years, we will work together. It's not a once-off that will evaporate when a project is finished, but it's a movement where we bring everyone together. And of course, it's mainly focused on public authorities, not only the cities, but also the regions and member states. We insist that this is not cities working with the Commission behind the back of others. This is about collectively going into the right direction. And the funny thing is that we also said, like, let's do two other things. And that brings me back to what we are about today. A lot of people said, we like this, whether that was public administrations outside the EU, but there are also a lot of companies that say, yeah, actually, we do this. We want to work in an open ecosystem. We want to adhere to a number of the principles that you have. And a lot of them would be SMEs. And I think that is where we actually decided to build that ecosystem together. So we opened up a possibility to become a supporter. Now, you know, more important than being on the list is that you actually support the principles. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. We also introduced the concept of a so-called citizens like. We now have over 42,000 European citizens that have indicated that they like to go with us in this movement. So really to build all of this collectively. And that is also a thing where I think we have the connecting point today with the manifesto. And to be honest, I think in its core, it's exactly what we need to work together. It's very much in line with the principles we have in the declaration. So again, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be with you for the couple of hours that we have, also later on in the panel. And I want to encourage you in continuing this good work, Sebastiana, with you and your members. It's really important that we line ourselves up in this respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for the encouraging words. I have to say that I'm only glad that when we have, the European institutions, yourself in particular, which are so much understood the importance of this sustainable model of digitalization. I am glad that there is, on the other side, an industry made by SMEs, which have also like to take this opportunity. So to work together in a different way, to understand that technology. You couldn't say this very openly, Eddie, because I understand you have to be neutral, but technology is not the ownership of a few big tech companies. Technology has to be in the ownership of everyone, especially of the cities and the citizens. So those who buy the technology, they have to have the control of their data, for instance. They have to have the control of their technologies, and they have to be able to improve the technology to solve concrete problems. And I'm only glad that there is an industry. Maybe it's not the biggest companies in Europe, but we have a strong SME industry in Europe that can respond to these challenges. Let me go on. Let me quickly check if Vice President Gaetano Armao is already with us. Otherwise, we'll skip to the next. Alessandra, can you give me a hint if Mr. Armao is already with us?
No, unfortunately, he's not available now.
Okay.
So we can go on.
We're really very glad that the Committee of Region, they have asked their Vice President Gaetano Armao to be with us today. Unfortunately, he said he's a bit late, so we'll hear from him in a few minutes. In the meantime, what we can do, we can already open the floor to the participants. We have a broader audience. A few people have expressed their interest to say something, and so I have a list, but the list is definitely open. I'd like to start with a best practice, people who can really, SMEs or organizations that can really inspire because they have something innovative, something that has not perhaps been done elsewhere, something that can inspire all of us, companies, cities, administrations, and so on. So I'd like to start from Ireland with my friend Owen Costello, who I heard many times because he does TED Talks, which are very inspiring. So I'd like him, if you have, in a very short time, if you can help us, give us some words of your inspiration, Owen. But before, please unmute yourself.
There we go. Thanks for your very kind words. And first of all, just to say a happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Our national holiday is kind of an international celebration of the value of community, which is very relevant.
Thank you for being with us despite the holiday in Ireland, Owen.
That's no problem. That's no problem. So look, the need that came from our local administration for what we did was that the solution we had to come up with was in our region, there's a high number of vacant buildings in our town. There was low morale and poor digital usage amongst the traditional businesses in our town, and we needed a way to attract innovation-driven businesses and knowledge workers into the town centre. So the common thread, as you'll know, Sebastiano, in my personal work, from working on the London Stock Exchange to running Technology University Dublin's Hothouse Incubation Centre, from building Novara Technology to Ireland's second largest hosting company, through to my other experience in delivering Ireland's first National Startup Week, the Startup Gathering, is the positive use of digital. That positive use to accelerate and augment growth in a collaborative way. So if we wish to empower localities to take control of their economic destiny, we believe at Digital HQ, the sustainable local digital transformation, or we would call it digitalization, the route to achieve this is through digital growth. However, as you at the European Digital SME Alliance have always said, this requires an inclusive approach by technology providers, citizen engagement, and collaboration with all the relevant stakeholders. So look, how do we achieve this goal in my hometown of Dunleary? I'm sitting here in Dunleary today. So to talk about the genesis of our digital first community model, I'm going to use the analogy of football. We all love football, and we're all familiar with football. So if you're going to get a football club up and running, the first thing you do is you map out and round up all your stakeholders, the supporters, the backers, the volunteers, the families that have kids who play football, etc., and you get them all together on the same page. So in our model, we call this collaborative element and the organizing of all the stakeholders, we call it a digital first community. And just as you have a management committee at a football club, a digital first community is coordinated by a digital steering group. So in our case, this digital steering group is called Digital Dunleary. But your previous speaker talked about scalable ideas. This is an idea you could have digital any location in Europe, any town or village. So then this digital first community acts as a focal point for the work to be done. Now you can't play football without a pitch and a clubhouse to play on and to get changed in. So this physical presence acts as a rallying point for your club. In our digital first community, we call the building that empowers the digital first community a digital growth hub. ideally located in a vacant building in the physical heart of the locality. And many of our towns across Europe have vacant buildings, often beautiful listed buildings with heritage, etc. And they can be repurposed as digital growth hubs in the 21st century. And the mission of this hub is to help the locality compete to attract investment, remote workers, home buyers, shoppers, and visitors. So in a football match, impact is about creating the maximum synergy between the home crowd and the home team. In Dún Laoghaire, we do this through collaborative digital campaigns. So experience Dún Laoghaire, so getting more people into the town. Love Dún Laoghaire, getting people engaged with buying from their local small businesses. And then why Dún Laoghaire, getting more innovation-driven enterprises and knowledge workers to locate into the town. So these are the campaigns that the Digital Growth Hub delivers. And each campaign is then mobilized through dedicated WhatsApp groups on the ground. But it also has a skills development role at a digital growth hub. So we deliver training to local small businesses and social enterprises on digital transformation. And finally, in football, you can't have sustainable competition without an ecosystem of clubs feeding from and into each other. So in our model, you would have a node digital growth hub, which also kind of acts like the county or the regional board. And it's responsible for the economic development of a 45 square kilometre pod. Why 45 square kilometres? Because according to the research, that's the maximum distance somebody will drive to use a remote working hub. And with that goal of that node digital growth hub coordinates and supports all the digital first communities and the digital growth hubs in that pod. So that's the basic digital HQ structure, Sebastiano, for large-scale digitalization of communities in a way that enables local small businesses to digitally transform. Just as any locality can set up a football team, equally all you need to do to establish a digital-first community through our open source framework is a smartphone. If you have a smartphone, you can get started. So in conclusion, Digital HQ, we believe, in fact, we are stronger together through digital. If we want sustainable and inclusive communities around Europe, we need a scalable grassroots up framework that enables people to get behind their place for prosperity. And we believe our digital first communities framework offers an open digital ecosystem for smart communities. So please feel welcome to go and have a look at our website, digitalhq.ie, which has all the information about our framework. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk here today.
Thank you very much, Owen. So it's not just helping cities occupy vacant buildings, but it is also about cities understanding the value of the digital ecosystem as a way to, as you said, attract people, attract business, create opportunities for others. Everything that can happen in a small town like yours should probably also happen in similar towns and in bigger ones. Let me continue with someone else who have expressed the interest to say something, to speak about their activities. I have Irene Providenza from Team Dev. Irene, just unmute yourself and give us your short inspiration words.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for the invitation today. I'm Irene, and I would like to talk to you about WISE Town, which stands for Web Information Streams and Answer for Your Town. So as the name suggests, actually WISE Town is an infrastructure which is specifically designed for municipalities and their decision makers in order to enhance, to optimize their work. Because actually when collaborating with cities, we actually realized that the problem is that they already have systems, even complex systems. But the problem is that those systems often don't communicate one to each other. So all the data collected inside and all the useful analysis that you could do are actually not implemented because of a lack of time, of people, and of resources. So our infrastructure is not designed to replace what the cities already have, but to integrate, to optimize what they already have in order to give to you back processed data, higher quality data, so then you can have a more complete and concrete analysis in order to face the issues of your city and to help you in the decision-making process and into the policy-making process. But actually, how can you be sure that no one is left behind during this digital innovation process? How can you actually involve and reach even smaller cities? So these were the questions we had. And to reply to that, we have decided to actually provide as a cloud service another tool, which is the thematic dashboard, which is a part of the infrastructure, because probably smaller cities or different cities don't need the complete infrastructure. So that's why probably you need you could need actually a tool which is more specific, more designed for the issue of your cities, because territories we know in Europe are very different, even in the same region. So with this tool, you can actually provide with the georeferencing and satellite data analysis, which are more constant and measurable, specifically related to your specific city and territory. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Irene. And I think one interesting thing is that you, as well as Owen, don't only think about serving one city, but you already think about in terms of scalability. So I think that the entrepreneurs are themselves trying already to answer one of the issues that the European Commission has been thinking about, so the scalability. Let me continue with the next company, the next SME, which pitched to us to have the floor today, which is Martel Innovate. I have Monique Calisti with us. Monique is going to talk about an initiative called the Orchestra Cities, right? Monique, please unmute yourself first. And remind you, you have 2 minutes because we have, a lot of people we want to give the floor to. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for giving me the floor here. I will briefly talk today about Orchestra Cities. It's an open IoT and data-driven, open source IoT and data-driven platform that we have developed in the last few years, thanks to European funded projects, to support smart cities and smart communities in basically delivering services of different nature at the benefit of the cities. This platform has been designed using open APIs, open standards, and open data. Conceived by design to become to be a sustainable, interoperable, and a scalable environment for cities that might not have huge IT budgets and that want to break the silos of big legacy providers that often are not affordable for medium and smaller size cities. So we have been working with a number of those municipalities and also with some communities around the municipalities in order to basically empower citizens and communities across a number of scenarios. The key idea is really to make sure that services can be integrated with one another, they can be aggregated, and this relies very much on the fact that this platform is able, thanks to a number of engines and modules, to aggregate data coming from different sources, elaborate them, and through an intelligent dashboard, make these data and services and insights about the data available for city makers, service providers, municipalities, and you name it. It is aligned with GDPR. It is aligned with main standards. We have been very active in communities like the OASC, the Fireware community. In fact, our platform is largely based on Fireware components. We have been worked recently with a smart utility provider here in Switzerland, but we worked also with municipalities around in Europe, including Wolfsburg in Germany. And the idea is really the empowerment of citizens and of city municipalities to make sure that, first of all, there is a common way to share value. And this is very much one of the core aspects. We want this platform to enable social inclusion and also to allow citizens to become part of the co-creation process. So in particular, we have developed a few.
Monique, I think you should go to the end because you have already your 2 minutes.
It's the last words. We've developed several applications. Some of them are environmental monitoring, so air quality management, waste management, and also applications like infrastructure monitoring and smart mobility.
Excellent. So, maybe you could put the website where people can check in the chat so that those who are interested can find out more. But thank you very much, and good to hear that you also have Switzerland with us today. So we have quite good geographical coverage until now. The next one that I have on my list here is Akos Major from Albacomp. Akos, hello, nice to see you. Yes, you have your 2 minutes.
Hi, hello everybody. First, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity to talk about our solution. What we did is a smart waste management solution in Székesfehérvár, which is my hometown and where Albacomp headquarters is. Approximately 2 years ago, we got a request from the National Waste Management Utility to make a pilot project to demonstrate how the new smart world could help in waste management, mainly focusing on collection, transport, and customer satisfaction. On Hungary, the biggest problem could be found in public areas around block houses where 1.1 cubic meter sized community trash containers are used. First, we made a sensor with saturation level detecting technology and send this information to our platform running on open source software using narrowband IoT technology. In the central application, the utility can see the actual saturation level of each containers more times per day and can get instantly alert information if any different from normal operation occurs, like container lid is open for a long time, or container caught fire, or container nut is in normal position. Using this information, it's possible to organize the collection route much more accurate and efficient. Utility can save fuel, can lower the running kilometer of vehicles, which reduce the maintenance cost, and which is also important, utility can schedule the working resources better, because of course on Hungary we are also suffering with the problem of not enough manpower. And analyzing the historical data also possible for the utility to reorganize the positions and the amount of containers in every area. From residential point of view, they meet a better service. They will be able to always find empty places for their waste and no need to see the overloaded containers around the living place. Now, we are in phase 2. We extended the project and installed the sensor in waste containers in small villages and cities around Székesfehérvár. And in the near soon, we hope, based on the result of this project, more and more waste management utility will follow this way to make better services. So that's our story.
Thank you very much, Akos. Good to see a company from Hungary and also a company that is helping to solve environmental issues. So that's also quite inspiring, and I hope you will have a lot of success over there, and that you can find also clients outside your country, ideally, to make your solution perhaps scalable and applicable also to in other cities. Let me ask quickly if there is any request for an intervention at this point from anyone who wants to take the floor in the audience. I'll ask assistants to perhaps Alessandra in that case. If that is the case,
I don't see anything in the chat for the moment, but yes, I also encourage other SME in the audience that are developing solutions to really present them. So please write it in the chat or raise your hand, and we will gladly give you the floor.
We'll see when we have some time at a bit of a later stage. We have another session with the round table tour de table later. In the meantime, going on with the program, and I'm sorry if I have to ask everyone to stick to the time, but I have this duty to try to make it until 12:30 today. I have the pleasure to introduce Paolo Valente, who is the CEO of a digital company from Portugal, providing solutions to smart cities. Paolo is one of our members for a while, and he has been very active in this, supporting the initiatives of the European Alliance, especially in the area of smart cities. And he was one of the people who helped us also develop some ideas around our manifesto, which is a document he is now going to present. And again, you will say this, Paolo, I'm sure, but this manifesto is, for the moment, something of a working document, something that is not set on stone, and we'd like to take on board any additional input, any idea, and comments, suggestions. So, Paolo, you have the floor. Please bear with us for 10 minutes for Paolo's intervention.
Thank you, Sebastiano. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. It's very important that this focus group was created. I would like to just share with you a few words before entering into the presentation of the manifesto that we worked and we wanted to share with you today. So first and foremost, I think this is a very important moment where the digitalization is taking a very important space everywhere, and smart cities and smart communities are not an exception. And as a SME, I think it's very important that we create an ecosystem that is always contributing to new solutions. I think what Eddie just mentioned in the beginning about the problems with scale-ups is that for European SMEs, sometimes we don't understand exactly how local legislation is put in place. And sometimes we find some hurdles that can be compensated if we have a forum that deals with it, contributes with ideas and with solutions. So with no further ado, let me just start and presenting you the manifesto that we worked together in Digital SME. So what I'm going to cover is the focus group, which is the scope of the focus group. Then I will move on to the objectives of and the values that this focus group brings to SMEs that can join this focus group. And then I will show you the main ideas of the manifesto, and then I will show you the next steps. So regarding the scope, I think everybody knows that the European Digital SME Alliance is, let's say, the most important representation for SMEs that work on the digital space. This is very important when we are talking about public procurement. Because there is a need to have, let's say, an harmonized framework that wherever we SMEs go, they should find the same kind of process. But also, we should also look at the best practices, the best solutions, the best cutting-edge solutions that European SMEs are producing. We have very, very good products that are being developed across Europe. Sometimes the problem is to be known beyond the borders of their geography presence. So this focus group, what wants is to bring together the European SMEs that are working on this space, but also the public administrations. And that is something that comes from the European space, from the regional space, from the local space, because it's important that all of us work together to share at least our difficulties so that we can find solutions. I think from my experience that everybody is willing to contribute to this process, to bring new solutions. But I think we needed a forum where we could sit together and create a good place to discuss and to propose ideas. So in terms of objectives for this focus group, we have 4 objectives, which are quite straightforward. One is fair competition and access for SMEs. I think it's very important that an open market environment is created. We have plenty of initiatives that make this happening, but we are still in the way to achieving, let's say, the benchmark that we want to have, so that we have agile public procurement processes. It's very critical. I was very impressed that depending on the country where we are applying, we always have the question with the language, which is something that is always an hurdle for a foreign company to do. If we want to have a true European space where we have, let's say, a fruitful environment, we need to look at this in a different way. But also we have another objective, which is unleashing the SMEs potential beyond Europe. I think it's time that the European SMEs don't feel ashamed, don't feel shy to go elsewhere and to propose our solutions. Of course, it's better say than done, but we can work on doing this by creating an ecosystem. Every SME is becoming a specialist on a certain field, and by working together, we can create very solid consortiums, very solid solutions that can be very interesting for our potential clients, with our administrations, with our communities that are looking for the digitalization process. Then connecting urban and rural areas. We should never forget that there is a big distinction on the needs and what are the ambitions that an urban area and a rural area has. And by bridging this digital divide, we want SMEs, which are most of the time very close to these entities, to propose and to bring solutions to the table. And finally, creating social value. When we are talking with local authorities, we want to work with them to find the purpose of bringing the digitalization. It's important that we do not just throw technology on solutions or on problems, but we do it with a purpose. And that is something that we also want to keep in mind. But there is some value on this focus group for SMEs. What is this focus group wants to address is to create business to cities networking events, is to have informative meetings, is to have access to better information for funding and networking opportunities. This is something that sometimes, if you are too far from the processes of European funding, of even local funding, it's important that you have a place, a hub where you can find all this information and at least the support to understand how you can embrace this process. And also having a visibility at European level. I think I've been in Brussels for almost 10 years now, and I've seen that sometimes at the local level, we don't have the correct understanding of the importance of participating in the European process. Our voice is always heard. And that is something that is really important to say. But we need to participate. We need to contribute. And that's what this focus group is also aiming, is to creating the right place to bring ideas together and to bring people together. So regarding the manifesto is a document, like Sebastiano said, that is a working document. We drafted it according to several discussions that we had. It was, let's say, the gathering of several ideas that we found that are critical, at least at this first moment, to start with something. There will probably appear many more ideas to be discussed, but at least at this point, we want to address these seven points that for us are the most critical ones and are very self-evident that they need to be looked at. So the first one is leveraging on the local power of your community. That is something that is very important for us, because each SME has a perfect knowledge of their own community, and that's why they should be the preferred partner to develop solutions that can enhance this power of the local environment. Then we have the embedding the European values and inclusiveness. For us, inclusiveness is always a word that is very, very important. because sometimes just the fact of being an SME creates barriers that large corporations don't have to face. And that's why inclusiveness, having a voice that is heard, it's very important. But also sustained on European values that respect privacy. When Sebastian was talking about AI, it's very important that privacy is kept in the top of our minds. It should not be forgotten. And these are the values that we want to keep in this discussion. Then ensuring interoperability and scalability of digital products by proposing standards that are open source. It's one way, and it's one way that helps organizations independently of their size to contribute and to propose solutions that are interoperable, and that is very important. Fourth, we thought that announcing the cross-border collaboration and knowledge exchange, it's also vital. Like I said before, and I will not repeat, but it's very, very important that the experiences of each and every SME, as of its local market, is critical to allow and to enable other SMEs to collaborate and to work together. Then fostering the digital skills. I think everybody knows and understands that today digital skills are at the forefront of our every company strategy. Even administrations, everybody in the society needs to have a digital skill, but it's not just knowing how to switch on a computer. It's how to go further down and use the digital tools on our behalf to be more efficient. That is also something very important. Then promoting fair competition and access for SMEs to procurement. For us, it's very important that an SME, just by the fact that it doesn't have all the size of big corporations, is not prevented from participating on all the procurement processes, because on this process there is something that is size, and size matters. Bridging the gap between urban and rural areas, like I said before, I think we should not forget this, and we should keep this in mind, that each case needs a different solution. And finally, just to conclude, the next steps. Just for you to know who can register, of course, European digital SMEs, but also local, national, and European public administrations are very welcome to participate and to contribute to this debate. This is going to be a forum where we can bring our views. Sometimes we only have one side of the equation, and we want to bring all sides of the equation to contribute and to find solutions, to create a framework that can be helpful for everybody. That's what we want. How to register? You just go to the website of Digital SME. There is a page of focus groups, smart communities. You join, and there you can join and showcase SME solutions. You can contribute to this manifesto, because we are consolidating it now. This is a draft, it's a living document, but we want to have your say on this. SMEs can participate and contribute to this dialogue with the public authorities, but the reverse is also important. But also public authorities that are wishing to deploy reliable digital solutions in their community, they are very welcome to participate here and hear from the SMEs ideas and collect contributions to do this important work. Just to conclude, if you have any questions, Alessandra Zini, who is also here on this presentation, she's the one that is the project manager or in charge of the focus group. Here is her contact, and please, if you have any doubts, contact her or myself, and we are very happy to share with you. Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and as you said, thank you also, Alessandra, who is the person who has really managed to put all this discussion together today. With that, if there is any immediate reaction or question, we can on what you said, we can try to address it now. Otherwise, feel free to write in the chat if you want to take the floor or ask a question. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next session. Thanking you, Paolo, for your interesting intervention. I'll move on to the next session, which is another tour de table with some selected SME best practices. Again, these are the SMEs who have contacted us in the last month. Many of them have also filled in an online form which has produced with more than 100 solutions, which you probably have seen on the website of this event. So I'll start with Jonathan Selby from a company which has been with us in other events, another SME, I think from Sweden, if I'm not wrong, Onivres. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sebastiano. It has many thanks for inviting me to talk for 2 minutes about what we're doing up here in Sweden, as you say. Universities are experts in something called computer vision. This is where we're really, really good at converting pictures into useful data. And so about half the company already works in the autonomous car world, trying to make cars understand what's happening in the world so that the cars know what not to hit, so that they avoid the obstacles and drive safely. But actually what we realized is that technology can be brought to bear very nicely in the city domain as well. And so what we've been doing is taking all of the computer vision technology originally developed to make autonomous cars know about the city environment and squeeze it down to run on a smartphone. And then we can put that smartphone into other vehicles that are already operating in the city, taxis, buses, garbage trucks. And we put that smartphone in the dash of those vehicles, and we're not trying to make them autonomous anymore. We're just trying to mobilize them. We're trying to turn them into data harvesters to gather information about the city, to help manage the city in a better way. So now we have lots of vehicles traveling around Europe. We have vehicles deployed in Zurich, in Turin, in Stockholm. We're just about to deploy in the UK as well. And so we're gathering data like where there's road damage, where the potholes and cracks are, and then we can send that information back to the cities and they can then repair it more quickly. It's a huge saving. There's cost of damage to the vehicles that drive over those potholes, but also it's a much safer environment for us all to operate in. We also detect traffic signs, particularly the speed signs. It's a big problem, making sure they're up to date. Our analysis here in Sweden shows up to around about 5% are wrong. And so we need to go in and find those and correct them to make the environment a safer place. We're also beginning to detect parking spots, vehicle and pedestrian flows with this kind of technology. So look, that's more or less an introduction to what we're doing here at Universities up in Sweden. If you'd like to find out more, universes.com, do come and get in touch and we'll tell you more about it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Feel free to put your link on the chat so people can check it out themselves. What he said is very interesting also because, I think we all know that Google has a lot of services like Maps, like Earth, and they have huge amounts of pictures from the cities themselves. And many cities are using those services. However, the APIs, somebody talked about the APIs, are not always open. And the result is that the data ultimately remains with Google. So every time we use it, we are making Google richer and ourselves poorer.
And also, it's very difficult to look through lots of pictures, actually. What we do with the computer vision is extract all the useful information from the pictures, so you don't have to bother doing that. And you just get presented with exactly the information you need to know about the city.
Right. So, it's about having an open ecosystem rather than a closed one. And you are...
For sure. Absolutely. Our data is owned by whoever collects it. So, for sure.
And I hope many cities will contact you and try to use yours.
Thank you very much, Sebastiano. Thank you so much for inviting me.
As opposed to Google, or maybe on top of Google, if that is possible. Anyhow, let me continue with another friend with a Greek name, but from Germany, Spiros Alexaki from CAS Software. Spiros, you are with us.
Sorry, no, it's not Spiros, it's Thomas. But anyway, Spiros is a colleague of mine.
At least you have a German name and you're from Germany, so
yeah. No, it's good. Okay, I'm here to present to you the Karlsruhe app, which is a citizen or city app based on our social platform We Network. The goal of this Karlsruhe app, or the goals, several goals, is to provide a secure open platform or an ecosystem, if you will, for both public administrative on the one side and commercial contents on the other side, contents and services which are related to the city of Karlsruhe or to the greater region of Karlsruhe. The second goal is to connect the city with all of its citizens and visitors in a digital sovereign way. So when looking at the app, it consists of 4 main building blocks. The first is so-called information channels. They are used to connect a sender with many subscribers. Senders may be the city itself, but also cultural touristic institutions, local businesses, schools, sports clubs, or so on. Subscribers use channels to inform themselves, to consume information, but also to interact with the center by sending comments or emojis or taking part in surveys, for example. The second building block we have is so-called add-ins. Add-ins are used to integrate services from a variety of service providers, such as municipal or administrative services, ticket apps, school services, food delivery services, stuff like this. The thing is that these services can use part of the user's information, such as the identity or other information, if allowed by the user, for single sign-on or for the actual service delivery. So it could use user's properties to tailor the service delivery towards the user's special needs. The third thing we have in this app is an event calendar. So it provides information about local, regional events, nightlife, fairs, exhibitions, stuff like this. And the information is provided by the city of Karlsruhe centrally, or it's coming directly from the locations, from the event locations, which have the possibility to stream such information into the app. And the last thing we have in the app, it's a chat functionality. This is pretty standard. It allows users to chat with each other in a safe way.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Good to hear your solution as well. Very inspiring. I know you're a very successful company in Germany, and I hope you will find clients also elsewhere, as you probably already have. Let me move quickly because the agenda is packed, and I see that we have even more people asking the floor. Anyhow, the next on my list is going to be Rainer Smith from Closing the Loop. Rainer, right? You're there? Good to see you.
Hi, thank you very much, Sebastian, and thank you for letting us talk here. So Closing the Loop is indeed, it's a company that provides the service called waste compensation. I won't talk about our company, but more about what waste compensation is. With digitization comes the purchase of a lot more IT equipment, laptops, computers, screens, computers, mobile phones. Jonathan was talking about how mobile phones are being used in cars now. With that comes also the demand to be more sustainable. Purchasing of IT equipment, just like purchasing of cars or buildings or furniture, there's a demand from procurers, especially public procurers, to be more sustainable in their purchasing. And with IT, that's quite difficult. So what we offer is a service called waste compensation, where you can compensate the waste that your new IT devices create. In essence, you can make your waste, your IT equipment waste neutral. We do this by connecting your purchases to the collection of waste in countries where collection of waste is not being done. For example, in African countries, South American countries, where second-hand equipment eventually gets used quite long, also new equipment gets used, but they end up in a country where they cannot be recycled. By collecting items from places where they cannot be recycled, thereby reducing the waste, we can ensure that companies and organizations that buy new IT equipment can do so in a waste-neutral way. This is something that has been adopted by TCO Development in the TCO Certified Edge program. It is something that is currently being requested by the Dutch government as a requirement in public tenders. All IT equipment for workplace have to be waste compensated or waste neutral in their offerings. And it's something that really drives more sustainable usage of IT in public sectors, in private sector, basically for any company or organization that uses IT, which I believe, if we're talking digitization, is almost everybody. Thank you.
Amazing, Rainer. Very, very nice to hear that. An excellent solution from the Netherlands, and also highly scalable and addressing very important environmental challenges. I wish you all the success. I have a few other people who have, in the meantime, asked the floor, and Alessandra will introduce them. Remind you, you have 60 seconds each. So Alessandra, please introduce those who have asked the floor.
Yes, so the first one who asked the floor is Michelle Hansen. So please go ahead. You can present your solution very briefly, please.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Michelle Hansen. I come from a company called Digital Innovation. And I'm spontaneously jumping in here to tell something about us, not so much about a specific technical solution, but what we do is we help larger and smaller companies with a consumer-centric approach, so the consumer experience. And from that angle, we joined this community to say, well, if you call it consumer experience or you call it citizen experience, it can be the same approach. So what we specialize in is, on the one hand side, help companies or communities with defining their mission, vision, strategy, roadmap to apply digitalization, but with a purpose, with benefits in mind, with problem solving in mind. That is the more the consulting part, and giving a community a sense of direction and a roadmap to work on. And on the other hand side, we have then a team of technical specialists called DI Blue that are experts in low code, no code, and such. But what inspired me was the number of solutions that I see here that tackle specific aspects. But wouldn't it be fantastic to put that in an offering for a community that says, we want to do digital transformation, but we don't know where to start? And that's where we would love to come in and help you orchestrate, or help communities or cities or companies orchestrate their mission, vision, strategy to get to a digitalization that brings the benefits or solves the problems that a city is actually looking for. And I see a number of participants here with technical solutions that could perfectly then collaborate, join in on that microservices, open architecture kind of collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you, Michel. I think you made a very interesting point, and I'd be more than happy actually to expand further during in the focus group actually. So you are more than welcome to join us. Okay, so the second SME that asked the floor is Lars Oliver Schroeder. Lars, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So we are a company called Xeinsis. We are a cybersecurity startup based in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, in the Ruhr area. And our topic is digital identity. We know that in Germany we are a little behind on this topic. So we're working on that. We have a contract together with the North Rhine-Westphalia government, where we are chosen for e-government solutions, but actually our core focus is now to bring that solution not only in the e-government context, but really in a broader smart city context, where we collaborate with a lot of cities by now when they offer smart city apps or anything. Our ability is to make it possible that different services coming in from different vendors or technologies in the background can be integrated into the one app, and that you have one central login for all the different applications. So basically making it possible for a user, for a citizen, to have the same kind of authentication, login, passwordless, completely without passwords, for the topic of e-government, public transport, health topics, citizen involvement, etc., etc., etc. So that is our technology approach, making digital identities workable to make life easier for citizens.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Lars. Indeed, security and privacy is a very important topic, and we will address it as well in the focus group. So now, just really the last speech, as the time is running short, I would like to give the floor to Donato Russo, please, very shortly.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here. I have seen so many fantastic projects, ideas, technologies, and I would like also to bring Chainplug's contribution to the European innovation. Chainplug is an operative system of Web3 because it is a blockchain, a multi-blockchain infrastructure integrating IoT and artificial intelligence inside itself. It constitutes the door to the so-called metaverse, where operation can happen in privacy and in total secrecy, or can be shared according to the level of privacy needed. At Chainplug, we have a patent pending called KYD that in rapport to what we do to humans, the process, called KYC, ensures and registers for the first time worldwide the identity of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Donato. Yes, Ali, thanks a lot. One important thing, perhaps, when I hear all these ideas, is that we have this ambition also to be able to help SMEs to join in consortia, because one technology alone can probably not solve all the city solutions, so to respond to a big public tender, but a consortium of solutions from SMEs can, if they operate interoperably among each other, if they are able to exchange data and have a solid agreement, they can be the perfect solution for even a big city, for even a big public tender. So this is an ambition we have, and we'll discuss that in the focus group, because there are some strong ideas in that and best practices also in that respect. With this, we have a 5-minute delay, but I'll ask my colleague Annika to take the floor. Annika is our policy director, and she's going to be the person moderating and introducing the next session.
Thank you so much, Sebastiano. Good morning to all participants. It has been really an exciting morning so far. This is a unique occasion for Digital SME to launch our focus group on smart communities. As the digital transformation of communities and cities takes digital to the local level, the role of SMEs is ever more important. We see many opportunities in the digital transformation of the local for SMEs from across Europe. And I'm so glad that with this discussion today, we could give the floor to SMEs that are shaping this transformation, and at the same time have policymakers enter the discussion. And now with this panel, we will move a little bit again away from the SMEs, from the local application, to a more bird's eye view on this phenomenon of the transformation of the local. So in the upcoming panel discussion, we will discuss with selected panelists about how European digital champions can drive the transformation of our cities and villages. And this panel features both city networks and SME representatives. Please allow me to shortly introduce our 4 speakers. So the first person in my list is Ms. Jenny Raitisoya, who is Secretary General at Open Agile Smart Cities. Before her appointment as Executive Director, she has worked with companies and organizations globally from her base in Tampere, Finland. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, Annika.
Good morning. Then, as the next speaker, we have Ms. Federica Bodelot, who is Policy Manager at Eurocities. At Eurocities, Federica leads policy and project development work on digital, smart, sustainable city and innovation EU policies. Good morning. Then we have Mr. Paolo Valente, who is CEO of Smart Lamppost and who you've already met, so I'm not going to introduce him again. Then we have Mr. Bart Rosso, who is from the city of Ghent. He leads and heads the data and information unit of the Ghent City Council, and has 25 years of experience in the civil service. He's chair of the Eurocities Knowledge Society Forum, where the exchange of knowledge and expertise between European cities is a foundation for formulating common challenges and solutions. So I would like to give the floor now to our speakers. We have a couple of opening questions just to, incite the discussion. And my first question is going to be to Ms. Bodelot. Ms. Bodelot, what do you think are the main obstacles that local administrations face when they decide to embrace the digital transformation, and what could be possible solutions? Thank you.
Sorry, Annika, before we continue, I think we also have Eddie on the panel, don't we? As he's with us. Is he still with us? I think he can also be part of this conversation, right?
Great, yes, thank you very much for joining us back for this panel discussion. I will give you the floor after the other panelists, if that's okay, since you've already been introduced in the beginning. So I hope that's fine for everyone. Okay, thank you. Back to Federica.
Yes, hello. Hi. Well, thanks. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here in this event, and I learned already a lot from the different presentations. So very, very happy from my side. Also happy to be in this panel with, I can say, friends from different level and associations. So Just to reply to your question. Well, first of all, maybe just quickly to say that, of course, we need to consider, maybe it might be something to reiterate the message so much, but I think that we need to understand that there are different challenges for different cities. So it's not just amount of size and resources, but also political will, culture, and so on. So really, when we talk about the challenges on digital transformation for local governments, really we cannot put the one-size-fits-all approach. But having said that, and looking really concretely to the challenges and to the barriers, I think that we need also to think about a number of what we as Eurocities have as priorities. So first of all, one of our first priorities in the Knowledge Society Forum, which gathered the community of digital experts within Eurocities, is promote digital inclusion, practices, activities, and policies in cities and communities. And to do this, we need therefore to address the digital divide and therefore work on, of course, ensuring high-speed connectivity, but also to work on digital skills development, provide people with access to devices, and not only, but to the right device. And in doing this, cooperation and collaboration at local level with universities, associations, and SMEs, of course, is crucial. Right, you have also in your manifestos also to not just the digital skills development, but also helping to connect with the metropolitan areas and the entire local and regional ecosystem. Then another important priority and therefore also a number of challenges is to look into the emerging technologies and really unlock their transformative potential. I'm thinking about, of course, IoT, 5G, AI, robotics, blockchain, and so on. And we need, when we look at these technologies and we implement them and use them, then we need to make sure that are done in a responsible, safer, and ethical and effective way. And then all the challenges, of course, related to the use and the management of data. We will probably have more time maybe later to look at some challenges specifically related to data. But here I would like to look into the aspects of data access and sharing. We know it is also clearly stated in your manifesto that a huge amount of data are nowadays produced in cities by but the majority of those data are produced and held by few and big players and usually are not European ones. So we need to work to create new opportunities for sharing those data, for accessing and using those data, while at the same time also fostering trust and transparency. Of course, European and national legislation, I'm thinking about the Digital Services Act, the Digital Data Governance Act, and the recent Data Act, are important instruments and tools, if you like. But we also have to work on other aspects. I'm thinking about the governance of data spaces and their implementation, especially the smart cities and community data space, which is really a place where then all ecosystem players can really can collaborate and be involved in for fostering data sharing. But then also I'm thinking about code of conduct. Eurocities is currently drafting together with Tour Operators Association and DigiGrow a code of conduct on data sharing in the touring sector. And this is will be a sort of a list of guidelines, including principles and definition and examples that should really help also SMEs in their development of data strategy and foster data access and sharing. And finally, just a last example is about the real projects that can be developed also at local level. I'm thinking about REM and the Rudy local data sharing platforms, which involves a number of ecosystem players, public same time respecting privacy and EU values.
Thank you so much, Federica. Really interesting points. I think you've taken really a whole perspective, holistic perspective, from the skills to the cultural hurdles at the local level, but also going now to all these developments in the area of data. Thank you so much for this. I would like to touch upon or give the floor to Bart now, because Flanders is among the most innovative and digitally advanced regions in Europe. And we would like to hear from you, from the perspective of the city of Ghent, how the city of Ghent has collaborated with the local ecosystem to deliver digital transformation.
Yeah, thank you. I will say to my colleagues from the region that they are being perceived as being digitally advanced, and we like to believe that as well. So, but there's a lot of challenges. I'm not going to repeat what Federica has said, but what we did to collaborate with the local ecosystem is on different levels. What we found important is you have to focus, and it starts small. It's not by creating big budgets that you will involve an ecosystem. You will involve one party, and the others will be envious. So I think there's different ways of tackling this. What we do is we work with open challenges. We are quite transparent in the challenges that we are facing on a societal level, on a budgetary level, on an IT and cultural architectural level. So that in the way we are defining the problem and the possible solution strategy, that we are already involving the perspective of SMEs. On the other hand, it provides space for a dialogue so that also the SMEs can understand the complexity of GovTech and what we as a government need to change in order to make the best use of the solutions they are providing. So it's a bilateral meeting. So these challenges we are doing, we are working together with the library and IMEC, which is a regional innovation organization on health, and not just health tech, but health in general. So we were exploring what are the challenges in the academia sector, in the professional healthcare. And one of the challenges that was emerging is, how can you make healthcare understandable for all the different layers in society? And now we are working on that together with SMEs. Another thing, we are we have a good tradition in open data. So that we share the data we have, that we are using in our solutions, in our policy making, because in the end, it's about how are we designing policy to make the life better for the people who are living, working, and visiting Ghent. And this open data is also a very interesting factor, because we have a tradition that people in SMEs are relying on that data flow to enrich their solutions. They will not build their solutions solely on that open data stream, but it will enrich and make it more worthwhile. So I think the challenges we are still facing is, how do we keep an overview of both the emerging SMEs in the ecosystem and the challenges that are facing us? Because now we are almost through the corona crisis, and the Ukraine refugee situation is emerging. So we need to be very agile as well in that aspect. I think the challenge is going to be budget. How much of the budget will we allocate towards digital transformation? And how much of that budget needs to be invested? And budget is also mentally bandwidth and a cultural change that we as a government are learning to adopt this agile mindset as well.
Thank you so much, Bart. Really interesting points as well. Openness, dialogue, transparency, agility, but also, of course, the budgetary aspects. I would like to, because one of the other questions that we've had is how, we can really implement openness. So one of the next questions I wanted to address to Jenny is about interoperability. which we see as an essential element to enable a collaborative, open digital environment. And Jenny, I would like to know from you, how does interoperability help smart cities to implement digital solutions? And why is it such an important aspect to consider?
Let me start by giving you a short background about Open and Agile Smart Cities. We are a global organization of over 160 cities in more than 30 countries. Born in Europe, we were founded in Brussels, but we try and bring the European values to our global membership. We try to be a voice towards technology providers like SMEs, as well as for policy regulators, to make sure that cities and communities are heard, that their needs are front and center. We do this through what we call the minimal interoperability mechanisms, or MIMs. Right now, we have a set of 10 that address everything from shared data modules to contracts or ecosystem transaction management to personal data management. And the goal is, of course, to make sure that cities are able to have interoperable data. We know that that's what defines smart cities, the amount of data that's being collected and how regulators and city administrators are then able to use it to provide services that provide sustainable, prosperous lives for their citizens. For us to define interoperability, it's important for us to have, first of all, a common vocabulary. And we, at OWASC, we use what's the ITU definition of minimal interoperability, which is the minimal sufficient degree needed to meet a certain requirements for data sharing, use, and reuse. For us in OWASC, what we have found out is that because for a local data ecosystem to be present, there are many problems that they face. First, the large number of different standards are complicated and difficult to implement. And the standards for these different issues are developed by different standard bodies, leading to gaps and overlaps. And that's why we developed the minimal interoperability mechanisms. The minimal interoperability mechanisms are minimal because complete interoperability would require compliance with a large number of detailed standards. And this is only possible for cities with really significant resources. At the same time, we know Eddie referred to the more than 95,000 municipalities all over Europe. And Federica referred to the fact that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So minimal interoperability is needed to enable the many small and medium-sized cities and communities, and those with limited resources, to join the larger cities in benefiting from an open market. Our goal in OWASC is ultimately to help create a global market for digital services. And that means that we are positioned between the demand side and the supply side. And making sure that data is interoperable is part of what we are trying to do. If you look at it, it's really common sense. If the data that you have isn't interoperable, if the systems that the city is using are not able to talk between each other, then you end up a few years down the line with technology debt and even vendor lock-in. It's like trying to go around the cities that has bodies of water, you have lakes and streets and pavements, and trying to navigate it with a bike because you think that's the only thing that matters. So what we are trying to do is address that. And in OWASC, we work very closely with the supply side, SMEs, companies that help us develop what the cities have identified as their need. So we approach this while we work with cities, we have a very set technical focus. And I would like to invite, this is a good point for collaboration between the European digital SMEs and OWASC to see how we can help cities do this.
Thank you so much, Jenny. This is also really a very important perspective. And I would now like to bring in the SME perspective on what you have just mentioned, because indeed, for SMEs, it's even a larger challenge to navigate different standards, to navigate different rules. You also mentioned the aspect of vendor lock-in. So, Paolo, like as a representative of an SME, could you explain to what extent you need more agility, for instance, in procurement processes, but also for you as an SME in general to be able to provide services and to offer services to cities and communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Annika. Just a brief introduction to the company that I represent, Smart Lamppost. It was the designing of a concept that we wanted to bring it's a street level housing solution. So what we wanted to use is existing urban furniture that already exists in cities, and we wanted to create it and make it smart so that it could host connectivity, it could host electric mobility, and we redesigned the way that lampposts are used today. Today they are used to provide light. What we wanted is to bring all the new features that can be used in a smart way that can help. And that was perhaps the trigger that showed us. I come from the telecom sector. I always worked in the telecom sector my life, and I always understood that there is a big opportunity to monetize this infrastructure that today is completely passive. It's just a source of costs for the municipalities, for cities. And what we want is to transform it into a source of revenue. And that's how we designed this solution. But getting back to your question, which is very important, one thing that we notice, and we are based in Portugal, we are originally from Portugal, but we are trying to address various European markets. And we are faced with some difficulties that sometimes the rules are not exactly the same. We try to find the common ground where we can navigate, but one of the solutions that we have found to overcome this hurdle is to find local partners that can work with us, accelerating this learning curve that we need to understand the local market. One thing for us that could be very useful, and it's something that for a major corporation is not an issue, is that the same way that we are discussing at European level an EID, an European electronic ID that could facilitate going across every country with an ID, for us, an e-qualification process that could allow us to be recognized with all our credentials everywhere that we participate could already be an important step towards facilitating this process. Because we are doing what we can on our side. We are already finding our local partners that can work with us and create, let's say, a localized solution. But from the administration side, there are steps that could be done. Sometimes it's not so difficult to do it. And I'm very hopeful that the focus group will allow us to create some deliverables, which are contributions to this process. But I think it's critical that at least these lock-in solutions that sometimes are that we find in our way should always be kept in mind when local authorities are doing the procurement process. So that means that they should look at how long will they stay, because they might be skipping very good solutions for their needs and for their citizens, and due to long-term contracts, they might be missing out these opportunities. And that is just one of the ideas that I want to bring back to the focus group once we started. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paolo. Indeed, it sounds like a very interesting idea, these e-credentials. I'm looking forward to discussing this more and within the focus group as well. Finally, Mr. Eddie Hartog joined us again. Thank you so much for joining us to this panel. I'd be curious to hear your perspective on what has been said so far, especially, of course, what you think, like how SMEs can contribute to this ecosystem. Of course, from our perspective as an association of ICT SMEs, this is what we see as the way forward. But I would like to hear also from you how you see that, because of course you have a broader perspective on these different players. And yeah, so please, Eddie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Annika, for that question. Let me start by saying what we're trying to do is not against anyone. It's not to exclude people. It's not about a football match. Ian mentioned that, or it's not about let's say chasing the snakes out of Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. That's not what it's about. It's about defining how we would like our ecosystem to work, and then invite all people to join. And that could also be big tech players, but on terms that are actually suitable for our European citizens in the values. And that is what you have very well reflected in your the second principle in the manifesto. The word, and we talked about interoperability, Jenny explained that very well. I won't go into the details there, but I think the key word I would like to stress, which you also have in your principles, is mindset. And what we are trying to do is to say to the cities, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can do these things together. Through the minimum operability mechanisms, you get some indications. We can develop toolboxes, blueprints for you that you can use. So you don't have to invent that yourself. For the SME, that change of mindset should also be different, in my view. We always say think global, act locally, and that is maybe what an SME should do. But from the outset, think in a bigger picture. When you develop an app, do you really need to link it to a local telephone number? When you develop an app, do you really only want national identities, or can we use digital identities? When you develop an app, think of how that might work in other languages over time. Have that change of mindset to be able to grow from the beginning. Because to a certain extent, we will be able to use some of the solutions that are there locally, but it's not efficient to develop everything locally. Whether there's a solution in Karlsruhe that should also apply elsewhere. So it's that changing of mindset that would help us. And what we try to do is to, in a way, provide you that compass, the direction in which we would like to travel with you as procurer on the demand side, but that you can then tap into to say, we would like to join that ecosystem on the same basis. And that is really what we're trying to do, where you can help also as an organization.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Very interesting as well, because I think what you just said, it really shows this not conflict, but a sort of line between local and regional or global approaches. Because we've heard on the one hand, also the cities, they need localized solutions because there are cultural aspects and maybe the SMEs, they can bring in this angle, but you're right, in order to scale and to grow, we need to maybe agree on a different set of principles or develop a mindset that allows also for a broader perspective. And in order to bring that together is certainly one of the challenges. Thank you very much for bringing that in. We have a couple more aspects we wanted to discuss. One of them is data privacy related aspects, but also big data. And the other one is digital twins. So I'd like to go back to Federica. We've been discussing this a little bit already in the beginning. So digital transformation really means acquiring an enormous amount of data and being able to process and master them. This creates opportunities also, for instance, in the area of digital twins, but it can also bring concerns to privacy and security, for instance. So I'd be curious to hear your perspective on how cities can really handle these huge amounts of data responsibly.
Yes, here I am back. No, of course. More data, local governments have more information need to be stored, processed, and aggregated. These practices may lead to data leakages, privacy and security breaches, and also even in extreme instance, high impact cyber attacks. Well, in most of the cases, local governments externalize the service, right? They have to rely on external cloud service providers, which lead them to a number of other challenges, like guarantee that these third parties comply with national and EU level of privacy and security standards, but also comply to city needs, which in some cases are even higher than the national level. And then this also brings challenges at local level for the local governments and administration, because then you need a huge internal legal and technical knowledge to make sure to include the right provisions in the procurement agreements. When I think about the role of SMEs in all these contexts, and really where the collaboration can be really, if you like, developed, and is on the middleware services. From a local government perspective, I think this is very interesting as you keep the data geographically close to the territory and to the challenges as well. And also at the same time, you also grow local economy and implement and grow the local innovation. Collaboration at the local level among the different ecosystem players to really, if you like, ensure that privacy and security are met is crucial. I just want to bring in a good example from the city of The Hague. Because when we talk about privacy and security, this explain a bit, on one hand, the challenges of the local governments have, but at the same time, it's also a very positive and good practice from the city to improve security. The city of Hague launch every year a competition called the Hague Day, and they give a prize for to individuals, startup, SMEs that find vulnerability of the municipality systems. Last year, they found out 120 vulnerabilities that were identified, at city level for the municipality services. But some of them were actually very crucial because not necessarily related to the system of the municipality, but also of the system that the municipality acquired from third parties. And I think this was something crucial. It is, I think, a good practice to improve not just the security of the local governments, but also to get connected to potential then security experts that can be involved and collaborate for future problems and challenges.
Thank you. That's a very, very interesting example. And it's really nice how you combine, the examples and the more global perspective. I would like to move a little bit more to the discussion on digital twins. Eddie, to come back to you. So among the opportunities given by the collection of data, we have the digital twins that can actually help to take better decisions. Possibly. Could you please help to explain a little bit what the potential may be of digital twins to our audience? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Annika. And it's difficult in 1 minute, but what we try to do when we designed the philosophy and the vision behind the Living in .eu is say we need to address the issues at all stacks. The broadband connections, the urban data platforms, but also the apps in it. And often we stick at the apps, invent a nice app, to do share best practices, but it doesn't work. So we said we need to work on the engine room, if you like. But the problem is the engine room isn't very popular. If I talk to a mayor about an urban digital platform and a data space, and we do all sorts of things that they look at me and think like, Eddie, would you ever do something useful, please? So it needs to be visualized. And that is where the local digital twins came in, because it becomes a sort of focal point of use cases. Because from a digital twin, you can deploy various use cases about prediction, about city planning with virtual reality. There's a number of things you can do. But it also requires you to have a very solid set of data and technology, etc. And that is why we've taken the local digital twins as a sort of focal point for our policy, which also links to our policies on destination, our data policies, and all sorts of things. And it allows us to actually have a real conversation with the mayors and the political leadership, and it's something that they like. We see a lot of good projects coming. I think partners there from Ghent, but with the Duet project, the Flemish region, Athens and Pilsen are really taking a leadership there. And that is why we have focused on the local digital twin. I'm going to make a comment to Sebastiano on the data. He mentioned it in the chat. For us, we don't really focus too much on the data ownership, because actually data is the funny thing is several people can own it at the same time. That's not always possible. We really try to focus on data access and data use more than the ownership, because that's really what is important. That there's a sharing of the data and a common usage of the data. That's what we're trying to do. But also the local digital twins help in that respect a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Sebastian wants to respond to that, but just very briefly also, I think you managed exactly well in 1 minute to explain what the benefits are of a digital twin, the engine, a room. So that's very visual and easy, I think, for people to get a grasp of why the Commission has taken a focus on that. Sebastiano, did you want to respond to the data aspect or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a long discussion, and we can, have another meeting for that.
Great, I think so too. Maybe also we'll have another discussion, for instance, on the Data Act. We wanted to do that possibly in the next month. So that is also something where this topic is, of course, important. I'd like to continue, however, still a little bit on data. So Jenny, we've heard from you about the MIMS. We're also curious to know what you think about open data in general, how governments at the local level and businesses can work with open data to develop digital solutions.
Let me answer this again through the lens of the MIMS, because the MIMS are based on open standards, open APIs, and shared data models. So they really allow cities and communities to offer digital services to their citizens that can be scaled and replicated, again, while minimizing risk and avoiding vendor lock-in. I forgot to mention earlier that OWASP actually heads the Living in.EU tech subgroup, which delivers the MIMS Plus third European policy. And we also work with the United Nations U4SSC, New Architecture for Sustainable and Digital Development. Now, having said that the MIMS are all about open data, what does it really mean for cities, for example, for policy regulators? I mentioned before that we are trying to be the voice towards technology providers and policy regulators. Now, for cities and communities, having access to the MIMS or using the MIMS gives them a choice, gives them flexibility. Because again, like I said, because these are minimal interoperability mechanisms, the bare minimal that allow for good enough interoperability. It doesn't give, you don't necessarily have to go you don't have to go for tight interoperability. You can also choose to have some loose coupling. But more importantly, for cities and communities, it gives them efficiency, value for money, independence, and of course, economic development. Eddie mentioned a while ago that SMEs also need to develop or to shift their mindset a bit. And with open data, because I think we are really we are in a post-competitive era. And working with open source, working with open data allows us to stand on the shoulders of giants. One of the things that really frustrates me is the number of times I've seen people trying to reinvent the wheel and not use what's already there. That's a huge waste of resources, especially when you think that majority of the municipalities and cities, not only in Europe but globally, don't have resources to spare. And that's why the MIMS, for example, are not prescriptive. We are not, the MIMS don't say that technology has to be developed in-house. No, we actually want there to be a viable market. So the supply and demand side working together. We just want the cities to know what questions they need to ask, to be informed on a certain level, so that both SMEs and the cities that they are serving develop. For businesses, using this model means that because they're approaching it from the city's needs perspective, they're not actually wasting time on developing solutions that nobody needs. So while I hate using this phrase, using it is really working with open data sources is actually a win-win.
Thank you. Indeed, it's maybe something to also, well, you mentioned the issue of the mindset, and something that is also closely related to that is skills, like people really understanding how they can benefit from open data, but also just having the digital skills to implement these solutions, but also, of course, in the local administrations to understand the potential behind these different solutions. So, Bart, I think you have a good overview of this issue as well, because you've been working in a city administration. And well, do you see this as an obstacle in order to really manage or master this big amount of data and digital technologies, the issue of skills and competences? How does the city of Ghent handle this?
Let's say, how are we handling this? I think there's room for improvement, because but what I learned in the past few years is that, okay, as a government, we will never compete on a wage level to attract the high-profile data scientists or the security experts. What I did learn is that a lot of people working in those areas are looking as well for societal impact and challenges. And I think that's a card we need to play right, so that we can attract them not as a career choice, but as on a temporary basis. That's the hard IT/data skills in that group. On the other hand, I think skills is also understanding and organizing your environment, your administrative environment, to recognize which competence you need at what level. So we need to talk or find the right language to put these challenges into a management context. How do we need to organize ourselves? How can we budget accordingly to attract, because for us it's a cultural shift as well, to attract expertise on a temporary basis. At the same time, we need to document the work that those people are doing, so we can rely on that a few years from now, when those people are no longer in our organization and so on. For one, I think on the other hand, technology and data is it becomes more accessible. More people understand how IT works. So I think we need also we need to work together to name the progress we have made over the last few years. It's not just challenges, but a lot of accomplishments as well. You said so in the introduction. I'm working 26 years now, and when I entered the civil service, computers were a rarity. I had to write a letter to get access to email. But now everything has changed. So we made this huge change. But now the digital transformation is on a more fundamental scale, because it touches the DNA of what a government should be. And I think we need to train political scientists, public management as well, in digital skills, but also how can we get business analysts, developers, how can we educate them in how to create this common good? So that's the long answer to skills. It's not just about the technical skills, but how can we reframe societal challenges towards a digital context? And going back to what the previous panel members were saying, it's from that perspective that we can look back on solutions that were built elsewhere and replicate them. Because it's never a one-on-one, because you need both the process and the product. That's repeatable. So I think we achieved a lot, and I think we need to really look at what we achieved and learn the positive lessons from that. And yeah, keep talking to each other, to the SMEs, to the other cities, to the other governmental levels. So yeah, I'm still happy doing this. So
thank you, Bart. That is a really positive note indeed, to know that we've made progress, and sometimes indeed we forget perhaps this positive aspect. What we hear a lot is also something you have said, like we hear a lot from the SMEs that are very innovative, that the talents that they attract, they want to work on important issues. They want to do something that is interesting. So maybe this aspect indeed is something that we can work on, or that we can strengthen, to bring these talents into this discussion because they want to work on societal issues. They want to develop interesting, to work on really interesting and challenging projects. So I don't think we're probably on the right track here if we take that into consideration. Finally, Paolo, we still want to get back a little bit more to the SME standpoint. So how do SMEs actually do that? How can they transfer knowledge, and how can they participate in this upskilling that is really needed to address these challenges and to bring the digital local transformation, bring it forward?
Annika, from our perspective, what we have been doing, there are at least two axes that we have found very useful. One axis is to work closely with the cities, with the communities, sharing with them the more knowledge that we can, because it's important that they understand exactly how the world is changing, and especially on such a specific topic as technology. We have plenty of solutions for everything, and sometimes just throwing a solution on something, on a problem, will not solve it immediately because it needs to be harmonized with other solutions. So we work together with the cities to understand how this can be combined. That is one aspect of it. And the other one, bringing this to the local communities. We personally are doing something that is we found it very, very useful. We find local partners that can replicate exactly what we are doing. So the same principles that Jenny mentioned about openness, open APIs, it's something that we are always looking. It's for openness on the solutions that we provide. We don't propose closed solutions. The solutions that we look at, the solutions that we bring to the table are solutions that can be easily interoperable, that can easily be adapted, improved, and cities can benefit from this condition. Otherwise, it's not a good solution. It's not something that we would propose. I think the dream of an SME is always have let's say the monopoly of a solution, but that it's not easy. And in the end, today the way that digitalization has taken over the space, I think it's almost impossible to only look for closed solutions that are highly protected. We need to work together, and by combining the efforts, I think that's how the SMEs will be able to provide very robust and very solid solutions to the cities and to the communities that we interact with.
Thank you, Paolo. So an open digital environment, a collaboration, we've heard earlier, standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you so much for these points. We have a lot of questions in the chat as well. I'm going to hand over back to Sebastiano for the Q&A. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Annika. I see a lot of discussions in the chat, and I would be very tempted to go into the discussion about data, but I think it's preferable to leave it to another ad hoc meeting just on that point. But it's good to see the reactions. Let me see if anyone wants to take quickly the floor for a question to the panelists. We really have very, very few minutes left. Otherwise, perhaps, I mean, it's late, but never too late. We had foreseen to have an address by the Vice President of the Committee of Regions, Mr. Gaetano Armao, also Regional Minister in Sicily. I don't know if Mr. Armao is there.
Unfortunately, Sebastiano is not able to join. He is having some problems with the connection, so unfortunately, no, we can't have it.
We cannot do that. Excellent. So we still have a couple of minutes to take other interventions, questions, comments. If anyone wants to do that. I know that there is plenty of discussions on the chat, so let's not do that at the moment. Instead, I would like to hand over the floor to Marcos Nogueira, who's going to help us do some wrap-up, some conclusions. Marcos is here not only representing the Portuguese region of the Alentejo, but also as a coordinator of an important European project in the area of smart communities, which is called Auroral. So perhaps, Marco, it's good to see you there. Would you like to help us do a little bit of conclusions of these very intense discussions today?
Sebastian, thank you so much. That's really a privilege to have this opportunity to little bit comment on this amazing event. Let me congratulate you, Digital SME Alliance. You are a amazing organization. You are doing a wonderful job. And why do I say it? Because I care, and that's the topic of these little small words. I care about European digital sovereignty. If we don't get digital sovereignty, we are not able to build the free, independent, and united Europe we dream about. That's absolutely indispensable. European sovereignty, it's achieved by cooperation. As Paolo so wisely said, that's no way an SME can take it all. So we are an ecosystem, a wide, very large ecosystem of a lot of SMEs that have to cooperate together to build the solutions that indeed will provide us with the needed European digital sovereignty. There is a strong role for regions on that. We need the regions to consolidate the regional hubs of innovation and excellence. We need the regions to provide the right governance. They are the right level to make it work. They are the right level to unify solutions between cities and other agglomerations, to integrate the diversity and to get the scale needed to make it work. So we need the regions to lead this process, but also creating on the technology side, and the EU Digital SME Alliance is doing it so well, to create on the digital side the combination of the environment, combining multi-interoperability, security, data transparency, that is able to build an open environment that goes from the needs of health, for instance, or farming, or protecting fragile people, or protecting nature, or providing a good environment for people to express themselves through arts, creativeness, culture. So that's really wide because it goes everywhere. That need of creating the digital, multi-interoperable, secure, and data transparent environment. That's why I care also so much about the European Commission's initiative, Living in EU. I was kindly asked by the head of unit we have today, Mr. Hartog, with us. It's really a privilege to do the best possible contribution to put together a regional pillar. We need the regions to work together and to collaborate also within Living in EU. And that's great to know that this idea is very much supported across the partners that are informally part of the network. I will do my best to achieve it and to contribute. All of you know it. So please, this is also an appeal to join and participate as regions in the Living in EU. That's I have to conclude with a big thank you to Digital SME Alliance. Sebastian, you mentioned Auroral. Auroral is a project where Digital SME is a partner. I can witness, I can say this is personal. I can thank the loyalty of your contribution and the quality of the excellence of everything you are doing within the project. So that's a great organization to work with, and that's really important to emphasize how you do so well represent the ecosystem of digital SMEs all across Europe. And without that ecosystem working together openly, as Paolo was saying, it's impossible to build that European digital sovereignty that we have to reach. So thanks, Paolo, to your words. Thanks, Anit, for so wonderful moderation. And thanks, Sebastiano, for putting all this together and leading such a wonderful organization. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Marcus, for the nice words. With this, I'd like to thank everyone for participating, and I'm closing the event and looking forward to see everyone in this new focus group on smart communities. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.